Namaste from Deepesh. Today in this one particular video, low code versus code tip, what I'm going to cover, I'm going to do the same business requirement using Power Automate, JavaScript and plugin. And then we are going to compare what is what and when to use what. There are no generic ways of choosing. This is totally dependent on your particular use case or project requirement. Hi, I am Deepesh Somani, Business Applications MVP Alumni and MCT, co-founder and author. Power 365 as usual guys, let's quickly get into the learning. So what is our business requirement for today's scenario? Our requirement is like this. So as soon as I change this aborted by and then save, then what need to happen is this particular business process flow needs to be logged or be set to a particular abort stage in the business process flow automatically. Normally what happens is this can be done by I can go to process and then I can just abandon the process, but we are trying to do this abandon via automatic code and aborted by, and we are using three examples and I'm going to take you through all of those three. Now first we'll go through the plugin example, right? So I'm just going to move to another record and we are going to use the plugin way first. So now I am having this record, but I have said nothing is selected. So let's select the plugin option over here real quick and I'm just going to trigger a save. And let's see the effect of this save. As soon as this record is saved, you can see this particular area, which is this particular area on the screen, which is business process flow, is abandoned and grayed out, right? Now what I can do nothing with this. I can look at the values, but everything is disabled for me. So this is very important requirement for scenarios where temporary hold on the process is required. We can definitely utilize this particular approach. Let's look at how this was implemented via plugin first. So let's look at this particular plugin code which is written on to execute, and this is written on the update of that particular field, which is the option set value. You can use it in the way you want to utilize in that particular code. The first few lines are standard execute. We are getting the tracing service contacts. We are getting the service object. Now next few lines are important, and I'm going to just what I'm going to do is I'm just going to type few things in for better readability. Obviously this is not the way to create the code. Now what I'm looking for is update and stage name is 40. 40 is post, right? And we are getting the entity ID. Then we are looking for the aborted by field. If aborted by field contains a particular value, if this is 2, now behind the scene what 2 means is it is to be triggered by a plugin. Then what we are doing is we are fetching the underneath process. In case of out of box case record, that process or the table name is called phone to case process, and then based on the current incident ID we are filtering and we are just getting all the record collections. At a given point you might have multiple, but in this scenario we only have one. And then for each of those entity records, what we are basically doing is we are setting the state code to 1 and status code to 3. I'm going to explain that what are those, and then we are updating this particular phone to case process, and this is done in synchronization in sync mode. That's why you saw the effect immediately. Now how did we were able to find out what was required? You can try a bit of tweak while doing it manually and you will find the right values on the underneath record. Here the status is set as inactive and status reason is aborted. That will in turn abandon your business process flow automatically. So I hope this particular scenario is clear to you. Now let us look at the JavaScript equivalent of the same requirement. We are back to the same record, and this time what I'm going to do, I'm going to implement the same requirement, but I'm going to trigger aborted by JavaScript. So as you can see, there is a JavaScript option over here as well. So I'll just select JavaScript and then I'm going to save this particular record. Again, the net effect is same. As you can see, this particular business process flow area is disabled. Now as you can see behind me, this particular requirement is implemented via JavaScript. Now what we are doing here is we are triggering the JavaScript on as set aborted. We are passing the entire execution context. We are getting the attribute aborted by again. The one values correspond to JavaScript of that option set. We are getting all that. What is the aborted by value? Then we are triggering web API to retrieve multiple record of phone to case process again. This was something in plugin we were doing via the fetch, and here we are using API and we are using the OData filter and then passing the incident ID over here real quick. Once that returns, we are getting the entire thing through a loop, and to update we are again calling update record. We are passing state code as 1 and status code as 3. Again the same things which are passing through the particular thing in plugin, but here we are using this. On success we are getting the updated entity ID as result, or we are giving error and the alert. Similarly, we are in the outer one as well, we are giving the error as well. So this is the same requirement if you wanted to achieve via JavaScript. I hope that is clear to you. Now, as you can see behind me, again I am triggering the same requirement, but this time via the Power Automate option. Obviously, Power Automate will take some time to kick in. So once I save, the save will be immediate, but this will not immediately lock in because Power Automate by default is async. So it will take a bit of time, and if I refresh it after a while, this will do the intended result, right? So this is also a way to do it. This is a low code way. The other were code approaches. Let's see how the low code way was implemented. So as you can see behind me, I have kept the particular Power Automate in expanded thread. It is in modified for cases in organization mode, and we have also filtered by this particular column aborted boy, right? We are checking for value equal to 3, which is the option set value for Power Automate on this custom option set. If it is yes, then we are again listing all the records of phone to case process. The fetch is quite similar. We are passing the case ID to get the particular records which are linked to this particular case. Then we are going for apply to each. And what we are doing in apply to each is we are updating the status and status reason on case. We're passing the phone to case ID for each of the process and setting the status to inactive and status reason to aborted. So the same requirement can also be achieved using Power Automate. Now let us understand the comparison on when to use what, and these are generic comparisons. Obviously dependent on scenario you might choose irrespective of the comparisons I am making. So let us now see some generic tips on when to choose what, JavaScript, Power Automate or plugin. This is an age-old question that keeps coming and popping up. So now we are going to discuss this, right? Like when to choose what. Now let's talk about Power Automate. The preferable scenario, it is better than JavaScript and plugins when customization and extension involve multiple applications or services. Like you are dependent on multiple application and services. In our example, we are only dependent on Dataverse as a connector, but it might be dependent on multiple application or services, require some complex logic, and you want to maintain it in a low code or a way in which a functional user or an end user or a power user can also handle it. And it does not require real-time response. What is very important is it does not require the real-time response. When is JavaScript better? JavaScript is better when the customization involves client-side logic, interactivity, validation, user feedback, and a real-time response. Even before, let's say, the save is triggered, you want to do something. In those kinds of scenarios, you will do the similar scenario with JavaScript. In this example of abandoning, if I wanted to check certain condition before abandon is triggered, I might have selected client-side JavaScript validation. When is plugin better? Now plugin is better than both Power Automate and JavaScript when it involves server-side logic. You need security, data integrity, you need a transactional consistency, or you require a real-time response again. Even in case of JavaScript, if you require a real-time response, these are important conditions in which you would select that. Now trigger. Power Automate can trigger and run on a schedule basis, on demand, or based on triggers or an event. Whereas JavaScript can only run when a web page is loaded, when a user interacts with the web page element, or when a web API response is triggered. Some examples being on load, on save, on change events, etc. Right? So the choice of trigger is also pretty important choice. Now I cannot trigger JavaScript on a schedule basis. If I wanted to trigger this scenario on a schedule basis, I would have to select Power Automate again. Plugin, the trigger can be based on a message such as create, update, delete, retrieve, or assign, or on a pipeline stage in the plugin execution context. Then I would go ahead and I can use this in a plugin way. Now I have already gone through sync and async scenarios. Let's talk about integration one as well. When Power Automate can integrate with multiple choices of services like various Microsoft and third-party services and applications such as SharePoint, Outlook, etc. JavaScript can interact with Web API and libraries that provide access to functionality. Definitely you have a Dataverse based Web API, but you can also trigger external APIs which are allowed on your tenant. Plugin interaction is only limited and compatible to the availability of application or platform that the plugin is designed for, right? So I hope this particular example scenario and the usage and when to use what was useful to you. Power 365 as usual guys, till we meet in our next video.